do we learn from the parable of the sower? First of all, there are three things that destroy what God has intended to use you for a process, okay? So that he can launch you into a vision that he has called you for. First of all, there will always be a common path that you'll be placed in order to test whether you neglect the call or go ahead and do what others are doing. There will always be that type. There will always be that thing where God will place you into a common path, a path that is common, so that he can test you and see whether you'll neglect the call that has been upon your life, so that he can see how you can still focus on to what he has given you. You've seen where people start businesses and then everyone tells them that this is what is making trends, and everyone starts that business. You've seen where people are starting companies and they're like, this is what is going on, and everyone starts the same company. It's not because that all those people are called for that. It's because everyone is looking for where there's gain. But in the long run, you find that they won't last doing that. They only do it for a couple years and they're done. But when you are placed in such a path, remember the vision that God has given you. Remember what God has told you to do. When you always remember what God has given you, even when you're working in the company, even when you're doing something as a side hustle, remember there's a vision that God has given you, and that is what matters most than whatever you're going to do. Okay? Second of all, there's what they call, you'll be tested in rocky places where there will be little means for you to extend your roots deeper within the things of God for establishment, but you will have things around you become hard for you to do, which in the end dries up your anointing. Yes, you'll be placed in places. First of all, there is a place where God will place you, a rocky place, a place that is intending to test the anointing inside of you. But most of us tend to lose it by drying up the channel that was supposed to flow through us. There's an anointing channel that the anointing of God is supposed to be flowing through. But we lose it. How do we lose it? We lose it through the aspects of these rocky places. We tend not to know what God is doing through that process or through that place, and then it dries up the channel of the anointing that was inside of us. You might not lose the anointing, but you might lose the channel. You might lose where it used to flow from. If it was flowing from your mind or from your stories of the past, of wherever God has helped you overcome, it now becomes a common story. It now becomes something common that you no longer feel the intensity of it. That's why it's very important not to take the things of God common, not to take it as things that you should play with or things that are common to human life, okay? Because the moment you start to downplay the things of God, they lose value in your life, okay? Always cherish the stories, always cherish the life God has helped you overcome, always cherish where God has brought you from, because there's an anointing attached to that. There's an anointing attached to your story. There's somebody out there that is struggling through everything that you've come out from, and when they hear your story, they're going to be delivered. But when you downplay that which God has placed inside of you, you tend to lose that channel, and when you lose that channel, you've lost it all. You're no longer channeling the anointing and it's helping people. Your stories are no longer impacting people. Your stories are no longer delivering people. Why? It's because the channel has dried up. Try so much not to let the channel dry up, the channel that God has placed inside of you. Third of all, you'll sometimes go to an atmosphere where the people or things around you will get so accustomed to you, experience more growth than you are growing, and use that against you in order to stop you from bearing any fruits of God's kingdom, which will choke up the Spirit of God. Yes. You know, every time we make the things of God common, it's also bad. And this is what I learned from it, is that there are atmospheres where people will get so used to you. They'll get used to you. They won't see you as a threat. They won't see the God in you as something big. They'll get so used to you because why? They see you on a daily, they move with you on a daily, and the moment people start taking the things God has placed inside of you as common, it loses its value. It loses its power. You understand? It chokes up the Spirit of God in you. Why? Because you are in a realm where you want God to manifest, but He cannot move. Why? Because they have taken Him to become a common God. He's no longer that big God. We see it in the story of the Israelites where they had taken Moses to become a very common man. And that's what brought about the sons of Korah to be swallowed up by the land. Moses prayed and the ground opened up and it swallowed the children of Korah. Always respect the things God has placed into your brother. Always honor and respect the things God has placed into your sister. And whoever God has brought into your life, they are there for a season. But every time we take it as something common, we lose it. Let us not take it as something common, because the things God has placed in people are supposed to be there for a purpose and fulfill a certain thing. Okay, let's allow the things of God have their own impact and move tremendously into the people that God has brought into your life. Let us not take it as something common. Remember that. Let us always honor where honor is due. Let us always respect where respect is not required. That is what we are called for. Remember that. The Spirit of the Lord loves you, and He's here to tell you that He'll always stay with you. Be blessed.